I can't believe I'm only covering this amazing opening now. This so-called Bishop's opening. Now, as usual, I'm gonna take a different approach by only teaching you some of the most amazing traps that are found in the Bishop's opening, because I believe that by learning these traps, you will be inspired to start playing the Bishop's opening. You will fall in love with the Bishop's opening. And that's the easiest way to learn new opening, guys. So let's look at the first tricks. So here we are playing as white. We start pawn to e4, then black responds with e5. That's what we want to see first. Now the Bishop's opening is where white plays bishop c4 right away, simply putting more pressure on the f7 pawn or the weak f7 pawn. And knight to f6 is by far the most played move in both the Masters and the Lichess database. By the way, this opening is also very much playable in classical games, not to mention that it is one of the oldest openings that has been analyzed so much. And there are just a lot of theories behind this opening and also many ways in which you can play the Bishop's opening. But today we are only looking at a few ways. So after knight f6, yes, you can play knight to c3, entering into the lines of the Vienna Gambit. You can play pawn to d3. And the whole secret behind the Vienna is that we want to develop our king's knight on e2 and not on f3. Because later on, we want to push the f pawn to f4, supported by our dark squared bishop on c1. So that is another way you can play the Bishop's opening by transposing it back into the Vienna Gambit. But anyways, the move that I want you to master in this position is knight to f3, simply putting more pressure on the undefended e5 pawn. Now in this position, there are two moves that are played mostly by black players, namely knight to c6 and knight takes e4. So first, let's look at what to do after knight takes e4. Now wait a second, black thought we wanted to take the free pawn on e5 as well. That's not what we wanted to do, because black has this move, pawn to d5. Even though it's not really a dangerous move, it just forces us to start and developing our pieces. So what I recommend here is the move knight to c3 right away. And this is officially called the Boden-Keserisky Gambit. Now you may think this is a little bit dubious, but believe you me, this is also playable even in classical games. You can check the Masters database. You'll find that grandmasters do play this opening with so much confidence. For example, 2600s, this is not Lichess, 2600s, 2500s, 2500s. So this is another opening that you can trust anyways. And in this position, it does not really make sense for black to go back to f6. We're just gonna take the pawn on e5. Next, we play bishop b3. We castle short and we'll be good to go. So oftentimes you will see black taking on c3 with his knight, after which we take back with our d pawn. And now this looks like the Stafford Gambit, now with white pieces. And so black should be very careful with his responses from here. For example, pawn to f6 is by far the top played move, followed by pawn to d6 and knight to c6. Now this line forces black to open up the AG diagonal, this diagonal right here, by making him play the correct move, which is pawn to f6. But the only problem with pawn to f6 is that it leaves these light squares somewhat weak in the long run, which is why you will see most of your unprepared opponents playing pawn to d6 in this position. And here we have two lovely moves. We can go knight g5 or simply castle short, but I like this move, knight g5, simply teaming up with the light squared bishop, eyeing the weak f7 pawn. And black will play something like bishop e6, because there's nothing that they can do, by the way, to stop this idea. So we take the bishop with our bishop, by the way, not our knight. Because the idea is that if black takes, we don't take on e6. And this is the common mistake that most beginner and intermediate level players make. When you check the Lichess database, they always take on e6. Taking on e6 is good, but not the best idea. Here you just simply go queen f3, threatening to checkmate on f7. And I can assure you to say you will see black playing queen d7 here, stopping this checkmate idea. Nope, this is not what we wanted to do. We wanted to take the pawn on b7 for free and threaten to take the rook on a8. Black refuses. Again, the top played move by black here is queen c6 according to the Lichess database in an effort to defend their rook on a8. And this is why you met black in style with queen c8 check. And please note that the only move which black can play is king e7, because these two squares are covered by the queen and knight. So king e7 by black, and then you play queen takes on e6 with check. The only move is king d8 and knight f7 checkmate. This is the bishop's opening for you guys. And hey, don't forget to hit the like button if at all you are enjoying to watch this video. And thank you so much for taking your time to purchase my lovely courses, which are listed on my website. Again, you can find the link in the description down below. Okay, now going back, after queen f3, instead of black playing queen d7, the top played move here is simply queen f6, which doesn't help either because of queen takes b7 again, and this time black will just lose his rook. If black castles, hey, be very careful. This is not Pac-Man doo-doo, where you just keep on eating your opponent's pieces. If you take on s7 with your queen, you are allowing black to play knight c6, and even though you can easily come back and defend the pawn on f2, you will just lose a lot of tempo. So just simply castle short here, ensuring that your king is very much safe, and the ideas from here are very simple. You will take the pawn on a7, you bring back your knight, you start exchanging pieces, you play rook a d1, and life goes on. Anyways, let's go through this line one more time. Here I said I like to play knight g5. The reason why I don't like castling short even though it is playable is because of bishop e7 followed by castling short, which is very safe for black. But see, they have been taught that whenever you have a chance to pin the knight on f3, do it with all your glory. Play this move romantically. You will see most of your opponents playing bishop g4, thinking they are being romantic, but forgetting that we have this sneaky move, knight takes e5, completely sacrificing our queen on d1, because after bishop takes d1, whoops, it is a mate in 2. After bishop takes f7 check, the king can't go to d7 because this square is covered by our knight. So king e7 is the only move, and then bishop g5, and black can safely go back home to rest. Now instead of pawn to d6, you may see black playing pawn to f6, which is the top played move, stopping knight g5 and also holding on to the e5 pawn. Here you just go knight h4 with ideas of playing queen h5 check. If pawn to g6, you take the pawn and also take the rook on h8. So this forces black to create more weaknesses from the king side, e.g. after pawn to g6, stopping queen h5. Now right here is where you need to remember this key move, pawn to f4. The aim is just to destroy white's king side as quickly as you can. By the way, we don't have any intentions of taking on e5. We just want to go pawn to f5. So if e takes f4, we don't even want to take right away. First of all, we secure our king, making sure that our king is safe. And here the top played move is bishop c5 check. We simply play king h1, knight c6 by black. We take the pawn on f4. And if pawn to g5, we have queen h5 check, intending to checkmate on f7. So black is going to play something like pawn to d6, paving way for the light squared bishop. After which you simply play b4. Now it's the queen side war. f5, bishop s7, queen d5. The plan is very simple. If queen e7, for example, we'll just take the s6 pawn and take the knight. In this game, we are more likely to win because of the many open lines that we have. Going back, black just played pawn to g6, and then we play pawn to f4, our key move. If black doesn't take, and instead they play something like queen e7, which is what they do, here we just continue pushing our pawn f5, and if pawn to g5, we just simply go queen h5 again, taking away black's right to castle. So king g7 is what they play. We take on g6, pawn takes, and then we go queen g4. Very important to remember, black cannot even play pawn to d6 because we're gonna take his light squared bishop here. And please see that we are targeting the g6 pawn with this team. And so black should give up his g pawn, but you will see most of your amateur players playing pawn to g5 here. After which you go knight f5, attacking the queen, and after queen h7, you can go bishop d3, laser beaming the queen on h7. Queen f7 is played and life continues. And by the way, what I like doing is just developing my bishop on d3, castle long. The other rook will come and join the party on f1 in case of pawn to d6. And of course, ensuring that our pawn on a2 is not hanging. This is the bishop's opening. Going back to this position, we saw what happens after black takes the pawn and after queen e7, but black can also play something like pawn to d6. This is the simplest. We're just going to play pawn to f5 again. It's all about pawn to f5. If black doesn't take, just go pawn to f5. And if bishop takes on f5, we take the bishop. And after g takes on f5, we have queen h5. This is the simplest. King d7, queen takes on f5 with check. And from here, we'll go on to win the game. Just like that. So now, let's look at what to do after knight to c6. After knight to c6, this game has now transposed back into the Italian game to knight's defense. And this is why I said that the bishop's opening is full of transpositions at times. And I think that's one beauty about this opening, because you keep your opponent guessing. They don't know what the next move will be. For example, here you can play pawn to d3 right away, inviting the Gyoko piano by black. And if you want, you can also play pawn to c3 and play this opening in the Gyoko pianissimo style. There's just a lot of things that you can do right now, but among them, I like castling short right away, giving up our pawn on e4 for free this time. Now here, when you look into the Lichess database, bishop c5 is by far the most played move. But you may see your unprepared opponents taking on e4 right away, and this is why you can do this little trick. Bishop d5, simply attacking the knight on e4, and after knight f6, you simply take the knight on c6. What's the difference? The difference is that at least you have managed to mess up black's pawn structure on the queen side. If you play this perfectly, you may end up having a good game, especially in the middle game. But one thing that you need to keep in mind with this line is that be ready to exchange queens and go directly into the end game. And this is for you guys who like playing end games. For example, knight takes e5, we just got back our pawn. Here black will play bishop d6, and then you can play pawn to d4 right here. If they take, you have two options, either to take on e5 with your pawn and allow the queen exchange to happen, or simply play rook e1 if you want to keep the queens on the board. For example, black will play bishop e6, covering the upcoming check, after which you take on e5 with your rook. And from here, what I like doing is just get rid of this knight as soon as I can, so that we can remain with bishop versus knight in the end game. This is also playable even at master level, but a more flexible approach is just to take right away with our d pawn, and after the queen exchange, black plays knight d5, then you attack that knight once again in a way of developing your pieces. Knight b6, let's say, we'll play pawn to b3, bishop e6, and we'll develop our dark square bishop. This is for those of you guys who like playing end games. But let's go back. After bishop c4, knight f6 and knight f3, giving up our pawn on e4. Then black plays knight c6, and then we castle short. You may not see black taking on e4 right away. Just like I told you, the top played move by far is bishop c5, and it is in this position where I preached about this move, pawn to d4 right away. Today I'm not gonna talk about this, because I have made a lot of videos on this line, one of which has popped up in the card above. You can check that out. But just to give you a hint, this line forces black to give up his bishop pair very early in the opening, and this is called the deuce gambit, by the way. Believe you me, if pawn takes or knight takes, white will always have a good game. And see what I'm talking about here. If I turn on the Lichess database, you can even see for yourself. After e takes d4, for example, white scores about 62%. Anyways, this is all for today. There are so many lines in the bishop's opening that I still have for you, so this is more like the first part of the bishop's opening. Therefore, if you enjoyed watching this video, please consider subscribing to my channel because that encourages me to keep on making more wonderful content just for you guys. And hey, the link for my website is in the description down below, where you can purchase all my courses at very affordable prices. And you can also check the link for my Patreon page in the description down below, where I post most of the premium content that you won't find on YouTube. So thank you once again for watching my video. Until next time, bye bye.
Thank you.